Ladies and gentlemen, starting off our discussion right away. Dr. Fahim, now this will be the first ever Russia-Africa summit. This summit will be co-chaired by President Abdel ElSissis as he is chairing the African Union this year. Now, how do you view this summit and what sort of importance and significance would you hang and attach to?
Well, it seems always that I have to start with past tense. We talked last time when we were in the G7. I told that it will come their turn.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the Russian turn now. And the Russians are, they've been our friends for quite several times, and since the 60s and the 50s. And they were supporting us in several fields, and they are our partner in the next growth we're seeking for everybody. And if you're talking about the Russians, they the Russians they were the main target to the Western the West. They wanted to destroy the Russians in all the wars, especially what we see in Syria and the gas problem passing through the Syria land, and then the Turkish and the Arab Spring. They were helping us very much to stop this whatever what they're doing in this area. And we can see that putting our hands together is going to give us a good push, whether here for in terms of energy, in terms of, you can see the Daba
nuclear power
plant. We can see in agriculture they're going to help sanitation, water sanitation. Definitely our system, the defense and the offense system, military system, the play. Yeah, we have lots of.
Yes, yes. Well, Dr. Fahim, we're going to talk much more in detail and specifically about the Egyptian-Russian relations later on. But this summit is mainly targeting all the African states, the African continents. And as you've mentioned, it's Russia's turn now. We've seen the G7, we've seen the German, the Japanese, the Asians. We're seeing many countries trying to really strengthen their relationship with the African states, seeing that it is
the giants' turn.
Yes,
we are the giants. The two together. We represent Africa, and they are Russia. Okay?
Yes.
So
well, which out of the African states and the African countries do you see most benefiting from a cooperation with Russia? Which countries do you see really going in full on in cooperating with Russia, benefiting from a Russian cooperation?
What Egypt was trying to say in the last meetings, that all Africa is one. And Egypt and Africa are definitely one. Okay, we're all equal, and we all have to benefit the same. This is our turn because we have to start with the infrastructure. Definitely, there are countries like Uganda, the fastest growing economy in the whole world. It's going to benefit less, definitely. They're much more developed. But we have to start to rebuild the infrastructure. Actually, to build lots of areas, there's no infrastructure at all. And we have to start to, it's not the infrastructure, it's the cities, we have to build Africa. Africa is the bailout plan for the whole world. Okay, this is the economic collapse. It's collapsed. We can see, and every time we're talking, it's coming. Like, now we are in the collapse itself. This is the Great Depression, and we have to move on. So moving on means that everybody has to. Europe, America, Asia, they have all to come to Africa. It's a virgin country, and it has to be redeveloped from the very first beginning. So we start with the infrastructure, and we start to build the countries, actually the whole continent, and but they all have to understand that the portal of Africa to go to Africa, they have to go through Egypt, because we and the Africans we're one, and we have to take care of their. We are responsible of our brothers there. So.
Yes. Dr. Fahim, now, as you've mentioned, the main superpowers are sort of in a race to have strong relations with the African continent and the African countries. Do you think that with all those superpowers trying to make the most out of their relationship and investment and cooperation with Africa, do you think it would definitely benefit the African continent and them in return, but do you see any sort of conflicts happening because of these great superpowers being in a race, in a competition to make use of the bailout plan, the African continent?
Look, I'll tell you something. Because there is no infrastructure in Africa, so they cannot start their power plant or their their industries in this. Okay, but I can see, for example, China is very much into Africa. Okay, they are already there, but they cannot go and build their industrial plants and this. So so here might be the conflict. Okay, the other countries, it's very cheap. It's cheaper to come to Egypt and to start their industrial zones, as they for the very near measurements between Egypt and Africa. And if we can see that Egypt, we have lots of workers, and the land is not that expensive, considering the euro dollar versus the Egyptian pound for the time being. We have our infrastructure that is already ready, as we agreed before. We agreed upon doing the land, the roads, the electricity, the workers, everything. So Egypt is ready. So we talked before, if you remember, we said either it's a win-win situation or there is no situation at all. So either they put their hands into our hands, or they're excluded from this.
Yes.
Sometimes they're trying to make some pressures. I'm not gonna mention countries, but as if we can see what's happening in Ethiopia. And this is some kind of pressure on Egypt, but we're passing. We're not gonna stop there. We're much smarter, trust me.
Yes. Dr. Fahim, now, we're witnessing a lot of cooperation that will be taking place within the African states. Now, which area would you say will be the most with the most benefits from cooperating with Russia mainly and the other superpowers? Do you think it's Northern Africa, the East, the West, maybe even South Africa? South Africa is one of the biggest economies in the African continent. How do you see the demographics of the economic cooperation with Russia?
I would go for the Southeast. I would go for the Southeast more. But the Southwest too is very strong. But it has lots of potential. But I would go for in the beginning in the Southeast.
You've mentioned the Chinese presence within the African continent. Do you think that it could create some sort of a competition between Russia and China, trying to make use of
already the partners inside the Egyptian industrial zone? Some conflict will happen. I don't know what will happen next day. I don't think. Both of them they have a clear vision of what's happening. So I think they have a mutual understanding between them.
Yes. Well, what about the main sectors that you think a cooperation with Russia would flourish under? Are we talking about the energy sector? Are we talking about agricultural sector, since Africa is strong agriculturally? In industries, sustainable development, information technology? Where do you see the biggest chunk of cooperation with Russia happening?
We can add infrastructure, the roads, the electricity. We're talking infrastructure, electricity. When we talk energy, we can see that we have to start from the very first beginning. They don't have. When they started the Nahda side of Ethiopia, I cannot understand them that much. They will build for example, on the borders with the Sudan, but the cost of the electricity transportation to any country is extremely high because they don't have any electric infrastructure. So I don't know what they're doing because it's like hell. So it's gonna destroy all the profits that they can do. Sudan already takes electricity from us. So and the electricity to go to Ethiopia from the borders, where the Nahda is, it's gonna cost them lots of money. They had the wind energy. It was cheaper and much better and cleaner and lots of things. They didn't have to do all this hassle.
Yes.
Over and above it, the mud there, it cannot resist that much. I think there are lots of problems of the infrastructure of Nahda.
Well, Dr. Fahim, Russia is very much involved in a lot of the political crises that are taking place in North Africa in specific, for instance, Syria and such. Do you think that...
North Africa? You're talking about the Gulf area or...
in Syria?
Not North Africa.
Okay. So do you think that maybe this sort of political involvement, do you think it can have any bearing on the kind of cooperation and the strength of it with the African continent? Do you think it's going to be an obstacle? Do you think it could be creating some trust issues between different African states and Russia? Do you think because they're involved, maybe it would make things easier for Russia as they kind of know what's really going on and what's happening on the ground?
I'll tell you something. Before we were talking, the Great Depression is coming. You can see all anybody has a vision can see whatever it's going to happen. But now we are in the collapse. So I believe we have to be more precise in the next days to see who is going to drive who. What is going to drive what? Is it the economy who will drive the politics, or the politics is going to drive the economy? Okay, and especially this time it's very hard, and we're going to have very hard times. So is it the right time to put our hands together, or is it like we're going to return back to we have to invade each other and is it like for the next time, is it like only one country versus several countries, or it will be several countries versus several countries? Are can we bypass this area, this time zone? We cannot. If we cannot cross this area, it's a world war. We cannot return back. But if not, I believe this is the right time where we should, in the end of the day, finish all our problems and hand together just to cross this very, very, very hard times.
Yes. Dr. Fahim, do you see Russia having a positive impact and a strong cooperation in terms of fighting extremism and terrorism around the African continent? I mean, it's a phenomenon that hit the whole world, all the different continents, but do you see Russia actually having a positive impact in waging the war against terrorism and extremism in the African continent?
You know, Mr. Hani, what I really afraid more in this area is the relationship between the Democrats and the Republicans in the States. I believe this is the real war, not the Russians.
How so?
I believe there is a huge war inside America between the two areas, the Republicans and the government. And I believe that this war is getting out of America. So whoever is close to the Republicans is against the governors, the Democrats. And I believe this war, whatever is happening in Syria, in Turkey, with the Russians, you can see that, like this scandal that happened with President Trump and what happened in
the elections.
In the elections and this. So I believe this is the real war. It's a huge problem, and it goes beyond our imagination for the time being.
And you think it's going to spill over onto the African
It
continent?
is already spilling over. It is already spilling over, but the next days everything will be more clear, and we will work like on white water, like you say in Egypt.
Yes. Well, do you think that with all the economic tensions and the trade war between the US and China, do you think that would be beneficial for a superpower such as Russia to, in the midst of all these tensions and wars,
There will
economic
be no
wars?
superpower the next days. There will be no superpower. Actually, what I really think that the whole economy is changing, the whole economic rules are changing totally. So we're going to see lots of countries, maybe underdeveloped countries coming up, and very powerful countries going down. Everything will change in the next days. So the thing is that you have to have a clear vision of what is happening. You have to have a clear vision of every step, whatever, who is moving beside you, who is doing what, and you have to, you have like how to say this, to decode the messages. Okay, there will be messages. Right. So you have to see what's happening. For example, do you remember when I told you I am afraid, I'm tremendously afraid from the cryptocurrency?
Yes.
Okay, the cryptocurrency. I can see that is a problem there, and this problem is going to be huge. It's not like we think it's just a small thing that is happening in the stock exchange. No. This is a step for something much bigger. Okay, we have to be ready for it. Okay, and as I told you, the whole economic rules are changing. The whole economic rules are changing. So you have to play. You don't have to play by the rules now.
Yes. Well, how do you imagine Egypt can be ready to dealing with the cryptocurrencies and the bitcoins? It is becoming an industry now. How can Egypt prep itself to be able to deal with such an industry?
We are the safest country in this area because we were trying to develop ourselves for the last 4 or 5 years, and we were doing fast. Definitely, this is macroeconomics. Microeconomics, we did not yet feel it, I know. But for the macroeconomics, we're doing a huge success, a huge progress. Okay, our economic growth is doing a beautiful. They're doing a beautiful job. The inflation is going down in a good way. We are starting to go versus the productivity. We want to, definitely we need much more, but we are doing it. Our infrastructure is getting much better than before. It's like we're doing a tremendous, beautiful job. We're ready to receive investments. Everybody is facing hell around us. In Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, in the Emirates, and all this, and they need to have a safe home.
Yes,
I believe Egypt is their safe home, okay, with their money and this, and we have lots of potential, and so they're coming here anyway. Sooner or later they're coming. Already they're coming now. Okay, so we're going to start new investments. We are going to help together to help the whole area to go up, and we are gonna bypass the problems, the internal problems between us and this, because sooner or later it will finish.
Yes. Dr. Fahim, you spoke about helping and lifting the whole area. Now, Egypt is, and President ElSissis are co-chairing this African-Russian summit, as Egypt is head of the African Union. So, since the beginning of this year, as soon as we assumed the presidency up until now, how would you evaluate and rate the performance of Egypt as chairman of the African Union? Do you feel that we are doing enough? Do you think that there's still more to be done? Do you feel that we are actually overachieving by chairing the African Union and our activities for the African states?
Giving us the chairman share is something, we can take it as we're honored to have it. But Egypt is Egypt, okay?
Yes.
And we're leading Africa, we're leading Africa. And we consider ourselves the servants of Africa. It's not just leading them, it's like
By serving them.
okay? And we're protecting all the, we're protecting all our rights versus whoever is coming to put his hand with us. So we have to help. And Egypt was always helping. You know, I remember in Sierra Leone when they were saying we are old pharaohs. Okay, and they were very proud to say that we were pharaohs. And you know the story with their king and this, and it's Egypt represents something very big with them, and they did put their trust. We have to be trustworthy for these guys. Being the chairman, not being the chairman, we don't care. We have our place. So next phase we will not be the chairman. Does this mean that we're not leading Africa?
Of course not.
We are Egypt. In the end of the day, this is our time. This is the time where we should go. We should proceed. This is our time where we have to grow all together and hand in hand.
Yes, definitely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the upcoming summit on the 23rd and 24th will be the first between Russia and Africa, the Russian-African Summit. But this is actually President ElSissi's 7th international summit for Africa, and it's almost the 12th meeting between President ElSissi and President Vladimir Putin. Let's check out this report, and we'll be right back. President Abdel Fattah ElSissi's visit to Russia opens new important horizons in the course of mutual relations between the two countries and regional cooperation, whether on the issues of the Middle East or Russian cooperation with the African continent. According to a report by the State Information Service, the Russia-Africa Summit is the 5th visit of President ElSissi to Russia. This is also the 12th meeting between President ElSissi and Putin. The summit, which brings together leaders of African countries and major African organizations, is expected to witness the signing of several agreements that contribute to achieving peace. The summit also focuses on many important economic issues of common interest, including energy, infrastructure, mining, agriculture, and information technology. In terms of bilateral Egyptian-Russian relations, the State Information Service report stated that Russia is one of Egypt's largest trading partners, as trade exchange between Egypt and Russia has achieved remarkable growth in 2018. On the economic side, the Russian Industrial Zone project in the Suez Canal Economic Zone is Russia's first offshore project. About 55 Russian companies have expressed their keen in investing in this project. On the bilateral level, the two countries have signed an agreement to establish Egypt's nuclear power project in Daba region, which is the largest joint project between Cairo and Moscow since establishing the High Dam project. Of course, nuclear power project in Daba has economic, financial and investment dimensions. On the regional level, the meeting between President ElSissi and Putin will focus on discussing regional issues, especially in the Gulf region, Syria, Libya and Yemen. It's worth mentioning that this summit represents President ElSissi's 7th international summit for the sake of Africa and its issues since he assumed the presidency of the African Union on February 10th of 2019.
نفضل نبني ونعمر وكل ما تبقى زعلان ابني اكتر.
تقدر تعمل كل حاجة.
كل ما حد يضايقك تبني اكتر.
ولا يهمك.
يا رب يوفقك.
كل اللي بتحلم بيه تقدر عليه.
مفيش غير العمل والصبر.
هيوقفوك هيحاولوا يقسوك ويحبطوك ويكسروك خليك دايما جامد جرب حاول عاند
هيقطعوك وتملي يفشلوك يبكتوك ويزهقوك وما تزعلش ده عادي كله كلام عالفاضي
لو غرقوك قوم لو وقعوك قوم صدقني في يوم بعزيمة وإرادة وقف تاني كالعادة
في جواك سوبرمان أحلامك بالإمكان وعشان انت
لسه كتير ان شاء الله، في شغل كتير بيتعمل وهيتعمل، وفي امل كبير لينا بفضل الله سبحانه وتعالى.
Under the leadership of President Abdel Fattah ElSissis, success stories all over Egypt.
مصر في انتظار المزيد من العمل والإنتاج.
New Suez Canal. Developing Sinai. Building on our strength.
القوات المسلحة مسؤولة عن الأمن القومي لمصر.
Building new cities. New social housing projects.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Dr. Fahim, we understand and we know all the sort of cooperation that takes place between Egypt and Russia. And Africa. Russia and Egypt, we're talking about military cooperation, talking about the Daba nuclear power plant, the free trade zone, the economic trade zone in the Suez Canal, the infrastructure. But he also mentioned that we can, the mining sector, that we can be very much in cooperation with Russia in that sector. How can that be?
Between Egypt and the Russian expertise. Yeah, for the time being, we're like under the Chinese control and the Australian. But I believe that the Russians, they should have a better role, especially in the, it's not in the, how to extract the mining. It's how to do the industrialization of making new industries and this. And we don't want anymore to export our raw material. We have to do it. We have to do that industries. And I believe that it can be. There can be a beautiful cooperation between us. The South Korea, they have interest in this too. Water salinization, we can make a beautiful job there. Energy, agriculture, we can have a beautiful job together too. We can play with, the cells, they have the lab cells for the plants, and it's very important.
Yes.
We can make a good job together.
Well, Dr. Fahim, you've mentioned the energy as well, and a lot of people are focusing in natural gas now here in Egypt with the discovery of the Zohr gas field. A lot of people are saying that Russia would be the most beneficial, or Russia could be a gateway into exporting that natural gas to Europe.
To re-export it to Europe.
To re-export it to Europe. Do you see a certain importance that will be paid to the natural gas industry, in specific the energy between Egypt and Russia in the next few years?
I would go better for in the petrochemical field. The petrochemical are much better than the gas transportation. It's the highest income from the petroleum sector. Okay, so I believe that we can do a lot in the petrochemical industry.
Yes. Do you think that Russia can be helping us in processing the petrol?
We can coordinate. Yes, we can coordinate together. Helping now, it's not helping. It's an open door for investing. The Saudi Arabia are excellent in the petrochemical field. We have lots of areas where we can benefit together. What we can do. The most important for the time being is to defend our zone. And to have our weapons just to defend, like what is happening in the Zohr field in petrol. Without our naval base there and our aerial base, we wouldn't have done it. The Turkish and they were playing all together, Israel, and they were trying to play around, but they had to stop. Maybe they're playing other games, but not the direct one for the time being. But returning back to our economy, we have to accelerate. We did a good job, but it should have been accelerated than before. We have several cards that we did not yet play with. The currency definitely we're playing like it's a cut rate, it's a rat-cat game. But
Yes.
We have to press definitely on the productivity, and we have to start things in the economy like the financial inclusion. We have to work harder on the inflation. The interest rate should go down more and more. By the way, our currency, when it goes down, is not a bad thing. People think that our currency is getting stronger. Actually, the whole world is going towards not to give more power to their currencies. Actually, no. This is they're all trying to go down in order to have much power in their experts. So maybe we need to reconsider this idea. Is it right that our currency is getting stronger? Maybe because we are depending more on importing than exporting, but we cannot get up without strengthening the export area, the export stuff, and the productivity. And this will not be with the high-level Egyptian pound.
Yes.
So,
Dr. Fahim, you've mentioned the importance of actually protecting the territory of the Zuhra gas field. Now we understand Turkey is trying to have its own role, or trying to playing around with this area. Now Russia and Turkey are also partners in other issues. Do you think that Russia can have some sort of an influence on the Turkish side in order to halt any sort of interference in the territories in the Mediterranean concerning the Zuhra gas field?
we cannot just mix everything. Like the Saudi Arabia, they're our closest friends. And, we are the backup for each other. We're together in Yemen, we're against each other in Syria. Each case has its own
rules and its own interests. Dr. Fahim, now the summit will be taking place next Wednesday and Thursday, the 23rd and 24th. Now, what would you expect would be the outcomes of such a summit? What would you want to see?
I need a clear vision. I need a real mission. And I definitely need our breakthrough performance. As I told you before, this is our time. This is the time where we should stand up now. Egypt has to stand up very, very fast. Okay, so I need a clear vision for whatever is happening in the next days, and I want to have a time schedule, and just to work in a very professional way. This is what I really want, because the President Sisi is the fastest in the whole world to achieve what he wants to achieve. So when he has a clear schedule, he's going to achieve it. Actually, and we all have to achieve it after him.
Yes. Well, do you see the strong relationship between President Sisi and President Putin actually being in our favor and maybe giving us more of an edge in terms of cooperation with Russia in specific than all the other sort of conferences and summits that we've seen with Asia, with Germany, the G7?
All people are our friends as long as they're not against us. As you just said it, they have some things to do with the Turkish and the Turk, for example, for the time being, the Turkish people, they're our friends, they're our family.
Yes.
But the Turkish government, definitely they're our enemy, straight enemy, straightforward enemy. So like the Qataris, the same. We adore the Qataris themselves, but we hate their government. And I don't know, their government is like less than.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, definitely there are a lot of hopes and aspirations attached to the upcoming Russian-African summit that will be taking place next Wednesday and Thursday, the 23rd and 24th of October, taking place in Russia, in Sochi in specific. And we'll be following up all the main developments and conclude related to that summit. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank our very distinguished guest, Dr. Ramy Fahim, the strategic planning expert. Dr. Fahim, always a pleasure having you with us on the show.
My pleasure, definitely.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.